I wanted to find out, can you beat Dark Souls 3 without using any souls at all? So no leveling, no upgrades, no boss weapons, no merchants, nada. Can we do it? Let's find out. Starting out, chose the Deprived class, so level 1 makes sense for this challenge. Then made our way to Gundyr. No issues with him, finishing with several bashes of our club, and likely the only boss we won't be under leveled for. This run's going to be all about pickups, so whilst we were at Firelink, grabbed a better shield than our current wooden plank, then with a quick tree hop, some Homeward Bones and an Estus shard. Sorry Andre, only need you for Estus stuff for this run. We're now ready to start this challenge. Now the High Wall of Lothric has some bits for us to grab, namely pine resin, but a much more important one for this run is held by the area's Mimic. Did have to get a second go, as got chomped to oblivion on the first try. That's better. And we acquire a Dark Infused Battle Axe, which at first seems like we can't use it, but in Dark Souls 3, by two-handing a weapon, it gives us a 50% boost to our strength stat. So we are able to use it, and a solid upgrade from our base club. Also grab the Claymore, although we don't have the stats on either strength or dex, for now at least. Potential option for later though. For the moment, time to go and face Hort, where our damage really wasn't that bad. Did end up whiffing the strike on his head during his phase transition, so didn't get the stagger, but could still wail on his back legs, which meant only needing a couple of hits to then finish him off. Next, we've got a bit of a trek until our next boss. Firstly through the Undead Settlement, with some more stuff up for grabs. A big one being the small leather shield. Why? Well, in DS3, small shields have more parry frames than the medium shield we picked up earlier, which will be a huge help with a certain boss later in the run. On the way through, had Holy Knight Hodrick come and invade, who we then probably led off the side of a cliff. Not the smartest NPC out there. Whilst we're here, we also grab the Reinforced Club, which does inflict the bleed status, so gives us another tool in the belt. Well, that's unfortunate. And again. Finally made it past, reaching the elevator, and after a quick dodge, made it out of the Undead Settlement. Although did make a quick trip back for a couple of rings, but we're now onto the Road of Sacrifices, where there really isn't that much to be honest. Grabbed the Grasscrest shield, and sprinted through to Faron Keep. The Crystal Sage boss we'll return for later on. Oh, one of the NPCs took the quick way down. Yeah, with those stats, don't think we're using this in this run. For the Swamp Keep, we had 3 flames to put out, so got to doing that. And whilst doing that, also grabbed a couple of materials for our flask. Now able to get a few extra from Andre before heading to Abyss Watchers, which was a close one. First phase, damage wasn't bad. And the Watcher has plenty of openings for backstabs, until the second one joins in. Then it's stalling time. Drag the fight out a bit, until we had Red join in to help us, doing a great job of either distracting the second knight, or getting some good damage in on the boss. Then second phase was both trickier and easier. Easier as only had one enemy to focus on, so I could loop in for backstabs. But trickier as on the mistakes, he does hit quite a bit harder. And after a mistimed heal, we were out of flasks. So had to be patient for the rest of the fight, backstabs only. Almost slipped up, but managed to finish off on our first go. Wasn't a quick one though, as that whole fight took 7 minutes, but not nearly as long as one of the upcoming fights. Not Wolnir though, as with the club doing strike damage, we battered his wristbands, and he went down pretty fast. So that was a relief. But going back a sec, before we fought him, we did collect a couple of rings lining the catacombs. Not super important for Wolnir, but will be important going forward. The Karthus Blood Ring and Milk Ring. The Milk Ring being the more interesting one for us, as it gives us +3 to our dexterity, so potential new weapon options with this. Now, for the minute, Smouldering Lake doesn't really have anything for us, and we can't progress further into Irithyll without beating the Deacons, so it looks like time to go back into the woods for the Crystal Sage. But the damage was not great, and worse was that although we can follow him around in the first phase pretty easily, well, the second phase with the clones is not the same story. And the spell barrages do not mess about. The Crystal Trail they do even one-shots us from any of them. End up switching to the Reinforced Club, and the bleed does pretty well to be honest. Did take a few goes with it, getting closer. Did get an unfortunate one getting sniped from the opposite side of the map in one of our closest fights, so that wasn't rage inducing at all. Eventually did get better at learning the spawn points in phase 2, clearing the clones first, and then ended up getting a lucky spawn and bleed proc at the end to finish the sage off. Would say hardest fight so far. Now to the Cathedral of the Deep, en route grabbing different stuff littered around, ranging from useful to maybes to just useless. But better safe than sorry, so grabbed everything on the way. A solid pickup in fact was the Lloyd Sword Ring, although had to get swatted by a giant to pick that up. But this gives us an attack boost at full health, handy for the later bosses who are going to be one-shotting us anyway. Now, Deacons. Honestly, I was nervous going in, and it was even worse than I thought. First, our damage is atrocious. 5 hits to take down the little guys, and we have to take down 5 of them. So after a million years, cleared those 5s for phase 1. Summoning the Pope Deacon for phase 2, and how was our damage? Yeah, this is going to take forever. It was okay though. I had patience, run around, a few quick blows, could manage it. That is until the healing. Eventually getting caught here, got mobbed, and we went down. Second go, changed it up a bit, equipped the Carthus Milk Ring for the dex boost, so we could now equip the Lucerne, which we picked up back in Lothric. Does a tiny bit more damage, but the better part is its sweep attack, allowing us to clip several of them at once, which sped up phase 1, but even with that, our damage is so bad that we'd end up getting caught and mobbed by his minions time after time. After a few goes following the same story, thought we'd take a break and pivot to something else. But if we can't go to Irithyll without Deacons, where else is there? Well, sounds a bit mad, but we headed back to the Vort Arena, headed up the stairs, and we faced the Dancer. Well, the first thing is, as expected, we're definitely a one-shot. And number 2 was I did have a plan to use the bleed status to help us out quite a bit, but apparently she's resistant to that, so that's great. So swap the club out, and instead on the next go, swaps the axe, which does improve our damage quite a bit. And after a decently long fight, got us close, but then got surprised by a different attack. Next go. Since we're a one-shot anyway, time to go back to my hitless days. We removed our armour, Flynn's ring on, getting the max attack boost, and our new Lloyd Sword Ring equipped, resulting in a massive 92 damage per hit. Better though, at least. Our third go got close as well, but misjudged the AoE effect on one of Dancer's moves. Then it was the fourth go. With us being super patient and our extra bit of damage, we managed to finish off Dancer, the destroyer of frame rates, and a hitless fight to boot. Now we have had plenty of practice on Dancer, but still find it mad that that was easier than trying to beat the Deacons. Now to see if it was worth it with access to Lothric Castle. I'm pretty sure it will be, because there's one item here that's going to give us a huge boost. Now just to make our way there. Sprinted through, trying to avoid enemies best we could. Getting slammed when we couldn't. Got better at avoiding them though. So got to grab the elevator shortcut for later. Then across the roofs, dropped down, and grabbed the Knight's Ring, which gives us a massive +5 to our strength, so more damage, but more important, opens us up to using a lot more weapons due to that 50% stat boost I mentioned earlier, meaning with that and the Milk Ring equipped, we can now use the Dark Souls 1 classic, the Claymore. Time for another go at those Deacons, where damage was a lot better. And as a bonus, the running attack with the Claymore even has a sweep to it, letting us hit multiple of the Deacons at once. Still wasn't anywhere close to easy, and the healing's still annoying. Plus the tag team effort they put in pretty much one-shot us if we get caught at the wrong moment. Eventually though, made and had a plan going in. In first phase, we lead the group around the back on the opposite side from where the Pope Deacon spawns. So we can finish the 5th Deacon whilst we're there, sprint around, giving us time for some good damage on the main guy and his healers before the others mosey their way back. Fight still takes a while after that, but with that head start, managed to finally finish this boss off on that try. But that took way more work than I thought it would. But now we have access to Irithyll and a few options to choose from. One of those options, which wasn't the best, was trying to run through, which didn't end well or get very far. So try the sneaker approach, with a white branch transforming us, and we slowly crept our way past the 2 sets of enemies in the way. Nothing odd about this statue placement at all. After getting past them, ran rest of the way and reached the next bonfire. Then the invisible enemies we could just roll past en route to the distant Manor bonfire. But had forgotten a small detail. Honestly didn't remember he can spawn down here if you don't deal with him on the bridge. So got to say, that scared me quite a bit when that happened. Learning from that mistake, kept an eye on him and managed to get past him on the next go. And with reaching this bonfire, it gives us 3 options to pick from: Pontiff, Dragonslayer Armour, or Yhorm. Decided first, whilst we're here in Irithyll anyway, to grab the Pontiff shortcut, as got a feeling we'll need it, which is definitely the case, as not doing this route every time I want to try the boss. Eventually got the right bit of luck to get past the dogs, ran through, rolled through the Scythe Guard, and got to open the shortcut. Now, Pontiff, where with our damage, best strat is parries, which we've prepped as we've got that small shield from the Undead Settlement, which does make parrying easier, but was surprised by how low our damage was. Oh, I just wasn't two-handing it. Yeah, that makes sense. So our damage is alright actually. Now the actual fight, Pontiff's first phase, easy. No issues really. Because at the very start we run up, roll his initial swing, then he can either go left or right. Left, we parry and riposte. Right, we roll back his thrust, parry and riposte. Super simple, rinse and repeat. Second phase isn't nearly as straightforward. With his new clone, he kept getting caught again and again and again. So, taking a page out of the Deacon's book from earlier, thought we'd pivot and see if we can pick up some stuff to make this a touch easier when we return. Decided first we'll head down through the Irithyll dungeon towards Yhorm, which ended up being a bit of a mess. Although I did have this funny moment dealing with the area's 2 giant rats. Then in a blink and you'll miss it pickup, we grab the pickaxe, which is now actually, damage-wise, our best weapon. So we continue down, now looking more like a lost miner than any sort of chosen one. And in Profane Capital, there is stuff around here that we'll come back for, but at least for now, decided to go straight to Yhorm, as all we need for him really is the Storm Ruler. Didn't quite manage him first try, as got baited by his delayed slam. But second go, managed to clear through with a series of Storm Ruler strikes. With Yhorm cleared, and still wanting to avoid Pontiff, thought we'd try DSA. And surprising bonus of fighting Yhorm was that the Storm Ruler was now our new best weapon. Bit of a shame, didn't even get to try the pickaxe. Now Dragon Slayer armor for first phase is pretty okay. We bait out his 2 swipes and then into a charge, we can run around his back and get a couple of shots in. Damage is not the best, but we can repeat this pattern pretty easily until second phase. Also to note, pretty much any strike is a one shot now, to be expected being after Dancer. Now second phase was different, having to watch for lasers, projectiles, and least of all, the guy with the giant axe. And for this guy, I tried so many things. First, standard Storm Ruler. Relatively quick weapon, could get the hits in and get away. Damage was only okay though. Then tried our best club as Soul was weak to strike, which did not make up for how much weaker this weapon is, so that was out. Then tried the pickaxe because, well, just because really. Wasn't horrendous to be fair to it. Then going back a step, thinking on strike damage, made a quick trip back to Undead Settlement to get a club improvement for the large club, which we could only just use as well with the Knight's Ring equipped. Which isn't bad, even not maximising damage with our rings, did a bit better damage than the Storm Ruler, but it's slow as anything, could only get 1 safe punish on DSA compared with 2 hits with pretty much any other weapon. So, next plan. Saw he was weak to Frost as well, so went to the effort to grab the Frost Sword from the Knight in Undead Settlement, but we didn't have the stats. So just pinged off DSA, doing absolutely nothing. And it was only at this point in the run, whilst tapping uselessly with our Frost Sword, that I remembered something. There's an NPC called Yoel, who following his quest could have given us 5 free levels, except that is blocked when we kill the Abyss Watchers. What could have been? Meanwhile, plan B, or probably more like plan E or F at this point, I made my way down to the Profane Capital, as killing this hand enemy in the chapel drops us a new axe, which is slightly weaker than the Storm Ruler, but was a bit quicker and more so, and with the horizontal attack plane, we ended up hitting the boss a lot more often. With the Storm Ruler just kept missing with the up and down strike pattern, and the axe was the best we had left, so kept with it, slowly grinded our way through. Even deciding for the memes, why not face the Dragon Slayer as a dragon? And that run somehow ended up being the run. Does it boost anything notable for the fight? Nope. Just thought it'd be funny and turned out to be the one. Finally, Dragon Slayer armor was down. Still leaving us though with 4 tough bosses to go. The first being a second round with Pontiff, but we've had some upgrades since we last saw him, with the riposte getting a tad more out of each one than our last go. Second phase still wrecked me a few times, but managed to get a good setup for this boss in place. By a stroke of luck, our damage ended up that the third riposte didn't take him into phase transition, so we'd get a 4th one in. Then with a few strikes before the phase transition, and then a few more whilst he's summoning his stand, we had him way below half the second phase and only needed 3 ripostes to finish him off, which we got by playing it very, very safe, sprinting around the arena, only parrying the surefire safest attacks. Managed it and finally Pontiff's cleared. Nothing new on the way to Aldrich, no new weapons or rings we could grab, so just a straight run to the boss room. Personally I find Aldrich okay, he has plenty of punish windows, and we can avoid him teleporting by staying a certain distance away. The problem was his arrow attack in second phase, as if that came out, it was basically a coin flip whether we were making it out or not. But somehow in this 5-minute fight, just shy of 4 minutes being just in second phase, we only got the arrow attack twice, and both times it seemed to mess up, spinning around in the corners or stopping around the pillars, quite a bit of luck there, and because of that, managed to whistle his health down and finish him off in only 4 or 5 goes, only leaving 2 to go, and a pretty big running section. Okay, even the normal enemies now one-shot us. And the Sage, but that's understandable. Do want to grab a ring now that we have access to the archives, but I had to do a bit of searching around the place as had forgotten where it was.
Nope.
Before finding it in the most obvious place, right at the top, collecting the Hunter's Ring, basically the Knight's Ring, but for dexterity, +5 to our stat, which means another weapon is now available to us, but had to go and get it, way back in the catacombs, which was quite a trek, climbing down, running through the smouldering lake, going even further down, then getting roasted and smacked a lot more than we care to mention, but eventually finding the hidden path to grab the Black Knight sword, which I believe without leveling and using all our stat rings is our best weapon damage wise in the game. We're now ready for the last two bosses. First the princes, who I've got a cheese for from my hitless days. When entering the fight, we immediately homeward bone out, which seems a strange way to start. But then when we enter again, we roll back against the fog wall, triggering the boss to teleport into 2 swing attacks repeatedly. Did this make it simple? Yes. Easy? No. It wasn't difficult per se, as the only change up happens when we stagger the boss, as they can do some different moves that we had to learn to avoid. Once dodging those, they would always return to that same 2 swing pattern, so no issues there. And with the new Hunter's Ring, we even now could equip and use the Frostblade to speed things up a bit with the status effect, which does take a decent chunk away. So all that's good, no issues in any of that. No, the problem was me, the player, as this whole fight ended up taking close to 8 minutes with the same 2 dodge roll, 1 sword hit routine. So many times, mind would wander, get distracted, or just mistime a roll. 6 minutes in, and we're right back at the start, again and again. Repetition was killing me more than the boss was. Eventually, managed to focus down and finish it, thank God. All done and just Cinder to go. Now I know this fight well, but even so with our damage, this is going to be a long one. Even have a guess how long you think it took. At least we're not a one-shot with some attacks, although we did have Dance's ability to absolutely destroy my frame rate it seems. But as a boss, Cinder was no messing about, no new tricks, no new rings or weapons, just us and getting good. A bonus I did find with the Black Knight sword was, with 4 hits put together in a close time span, staggered him pretty consistently. Super helpful for stopping his most annoying ability, his healing, as the stagger just stops that entirely. And also with his home in soul mass. And of course just enables us to wail on him more often for damage, which is always good. Eventually though, reach second phase, which is a lot simpler than first phase, but a lot less damage opportunities, for the slower weapon we're using at least. And so with our first attempt at second phase, with nerves very much there, knowing how long this fight will take to retry, we got through, slowly, patiently, and managed to beat Soul of Cinder and Dark Souls 3 without ever using souls. And, by the way, 13 minutes that final fight took. I hope you enjoyed the challenge, and we'll see you for the next one.